Dragon Age 2 is the middle child of the Dragon Age series, and after playing it for the first time here in 2024, I now understand why. Released in 2011, just 2 years after the release of Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2 managed to impress and disappoint equally. With EA giving Bioware just upwards of 16 months to complete the game, it's actually a miracle the game turned out the way it did, considering games with that short of development time these days would probably release looking like the scrolling text of the Matrix.
I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see.
I personally was one of the many people who bypassed Dragon Age 2 due to the mixed reviews and understanding of the lack of development time, and I am here to admit that was a mistake. What's going on, you guys? My name is Kintzugi, and this is why you cannot underestimate Dragon Age 2. Dragon Age 2 is a crucial piece of the Dragon Age lore. For the first and only time in the series, you play as Garrett Hawke, an already established protagonist, rather than a player-made character. Being that Dragon Age 2 begins during the same time as one of the major events within the first game, the Battle of Ostagar, it casts a smaller, yet more focused look of the world of Thedas for players previously familiar with it. After fleeing the town of Lothering, Hawke joins a band of mercenaries and arrives at the city of Kirkwall, where the rest of the game takes place. Kirkwall is a grand city full of political and social conflict, and the player, as Hawke, determines outcomes through the decisions made in game, as is the Dragon Age way, and works to establish higher personal status within the city. What makes Dragon Age 2 different story-wise compared to Origins is that the Darkspawn are not the only threat in this one. There is no leading antagonist in Dragon Age 2, which made my playthrough feel more like one of personal growth rather than a heroic one. There is a further telling of the Qunari through the introduction of the Arishok, the leader of the military branch of the Qunari, who becomes stranded in Kirkwall, and thus a stalemate between them and the city of Kirkwall begins. Fun fact, any race is considered Qunari as long as they follow the Qun. However, those who do not identify as a giant race with horns are called Vidithari, and then later there is a growing and aggressive conflict between the Templars and mages. So rather than a heroic tale, as previously mentioned, it becomes clear that the purpose of Hawke's journey is primarily to keep the peace in Kirkwall for the time being. The story of Dragon Age 2 for me was a little bit underwhelming at first. However, upon finishing Dragon Age 2, I felt as though the ending was similar to that of a short story. What I mean by this is that Dragon Age 2 feels more like a grand expansion to the series. It gives players a look beyond the Blight and the Darkspawn to show that the political and social conflict in the world of Thedas is just as monumental as the former. I love having learned more about the Qunari and the Qun, and learned just how intense the Mage vs Templars conflicts really are in the grand scheme of things. And when Dragon Age 2 is put into this context, I think it shines bright as a necessary entry in the series. I also feel Bioware did a fantastic job with making the story feel adequate with the limited amount of development time they had. The way they handled side quests and companion quests was just super well done. Everything felt like a cohesive experience without too much filler. And speaking of content, the DLCs for Dragon Age 2, just like its predecessor Origins, are arguably just as grand as the base game, being that they feel like a natural continuation of the base game events. Bioware's ability to make these DLCs feel just as important to the base game is something I feel needs to be praised. So if you decide to play this game, do not overlook the DLC content. One will reference characters of the past from Dragon Age Origins, and the other will serve as a prologue to the next game in the series, Dragon Age Inquisition. The gameplay for Dragon Age 2 is actually where I feel like the game sets itself apart from the others in the series. It is a much more streamlined experience coming from Origins without entirely abandoning some elements from the first game. But before we get into the good, I want to share what I didn't like. First up, the UI is actually horrific. To me, it looks like a first draft. It's underwhelming and almost a mobile game level of detail. Next, the character models look fuzzy in the inventory screen. There are no drop-down menus to use lose when trading, and you have to drag items one at a time, and the only way to select all characters on PC was to shift-click each companion's portrait or mouse drag everyone if they are all on the screen near each other. This is one of the first areas that made it clear the development time for this game was limited. But let's move into what I did like, starting with combat feel. It is fast and action-like, using a click target system and a skill bar. To be honest, it almost feels arcade-like at times. There are many abilities to choose from, and there's a wide variety of skill trees to customize unique builds within the three classes: Warrior, Rogue, and Mage. And speaking of skill trees, Dragon Age 2 introduces companion-specific trees to create for identity in combat that goes beyond the class of the character. I found combat in Dragon Age 2 to be extremely enjoyable due to its ability to feel like an action game with the seamless ability to pause and maintain the tactical elements that are found in CRPG games. In the first game, Dragon Age Origins, it felt at times slow due to it leaning more CRPG combat-wise, so this evolution Bioware managed streamlined the combat for more people to enjoy while still maintaining the mechanics that previous fans love. Although the tactical camera no longer exists during more difficult encounters, I still found myself planning with the use of the pause in combat and queuing of my abilities, which was necessary for victory. I was also able to relax and hack and slash my way through trash mobs, and it was all a seamless experience. So for those of you who are freaking out about Dragon Age the Veilguard not having a tactical camera, just know the Veilguard isn't the first time in the series this has happened, and it was still a fantastic experience. All in all, the combat in Dragon Age 2 never felt like a chore. It also made melee combat feel good for the first time in the series. Moving on, the dialogue in Dragon Age 2 continued to be just as engaging as before, and this is where the dialogue wheel introduces itself to the series. It provides players with 3 response options that are typically diplomatic/helpful, humorous/charming/definitely sarcastic, and aggressive/direct, with the occasional romance and investigation options available. I found dialogue to be enjoyable in the sense that the camaraderie and banter between Hawke and/or their companions was usually wholesome or hilarious. And I feel like it is where, for the first time in the series, Bioware takes their companion-forward identity in the party-based RPG space and introduces the most endearing companions so far. And speaking of companions, they were so enjoyable in this game that they deserve their own section. One of Bioware and Dragon Age's biggest selling points is their ability to make companions just as impactful as the protagonist or player character. In Dragon Age 2, it is clear to me this is where Bioware cemented themselves as the personality-driven and thirsty companion gurus they have become. You know we can't talk about Dragon Age companions without... Shut up and kiss! There it is, baby!
I love you.
No! The companions in Dragon Age 2 have left the greatest impression on me, which isn't all that different from Origins. However, I feel like the companions in the second game were more charming. We are introduced to a diverse group of personalities, some new and some familiar, each one representing as individuals who have their own personal challenges and beliefs. From the seriousness of Fenris, an elf slave who is fighting back from oppression, to the quick-witted and mega-thirsty pirate, Isabella, who is scheming illegal activities just as much as she only ever has one thing on her mind, and it is disgusting. Some of my favorite moments in this game are when the dialogue wheel allows you to choose to hear from your companions or has them verbally handle situations. It's a nice dopamine spike of curiosity for what they might say, and when you begin to learn more about them, you feel like you know whether or not they are best suited to handle situations or value their opinions when contemplating what to do. Dragon Age 2 is the only game in the series where I felt the want to use all party members throughout the game, through their unique toolkits on the battlefield, or the potential for unique dialogue if the right companion is present for certain situations, felt as though there was always a line of dialogue delivered that would make me smile. And after deep diving the Dragon Age series for the first time, I now understand why people talk about companions just as much as the combat. Dragon Age 2 has felt like an oddball in the series since its release in 2011, but after my first playthrough of it in 2024, I am here to say that it not only still holds up as a great fantasy RPG, but but it is a necessary entry into the series. Although it might feel underwhelming story-wise for outsiders to the series because of its small sample size into the world of Theros, the gameplay and companions make for an endearing and action-packed experience. And for those already familiar with Dragon Age, I see Dragon Age 2 as a love letter chapter in the bigger story because of its ability to make its unfortunately reused environments and subpar visual elements easy to overlook because the players are given so much power to sway conflict, have fun in its streamlined combat, and the companions are so easy to love or hate. If you were like myself and disregarded this game in the past, I encourage you to give it a try, especially before the Veilguard releases. Alright you guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching to the end as always. As you can tell, I'm a massive fan of Dragon Age 2 after giving it a try for the first time here in 2024, but I want to hear more about what you guys think of it. Have you played it, or are you interested in playing now that Dragon Age the Veilguard, the newest game in the series, is about to release soon? Wherever you stand with the game, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below and let's keep this conversation going further. And remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already for further RPG content. We go live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on YouTube and over on Twitch. And until next time you find people on the internet, I'll see you soon. Peace.